All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to give you a chance to enter the room. I'm not even introducing my guest yet. I'm just extending a warm welcome to everybody and making sure that you invite yourself center stage, secure your seats, and know that we're so happy that you are here. It is Sunday, June the 13th. Can you imagine it's the middle of the year already?
I know.
It doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't. It came by
It
so
really
quickly.
doesn't. It really is going by so fast.
Yeah.
For those of you who are joining, let us know where you're joining us from. I am speaking to you from Jamaica. No, the island of Jamaica, right? And our amazing guest is speaking to us from New York. So nice. We have to say it twice,
That's it.
right? So let's get everybody. Hey there. Hey, Charlotte, North Carolina is in the house. Canada is in the house.
I love it.
Whitney, to be very specific.
Nice.
All right. Where you joining us from? Good. So happy. Jamaica is in the house. Everybody's doing the double name now. Jamaica is in the house. Thank you so much for joining. You started it. New York, Jamaica, Whitby, Charlotte. It's a double barrel. It's a double barrel jig today. I'm gonna adjust my microphone a bit. I'm still hearing. Talia, are you hearing feedback from my mic? There it is. I'm hearing it. Talia is my tech support. I've appointed her.
Oh.
Oh no, Cheryl said yes. She's hearing it. All right, I'm going to try and fix that. Yes, a little echo. All right, I pray. This is such an important episode. We've already prayed up. I pray that that's a lot better now.
It sounds better.
I believe so.
Yes.
Sounds better. But then no, you sound lower.
I do?
Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm happy to know it's better. What about Bernadette? How does she sound? Bernadette, can you speak a little bit for me, please?
Of course. How's everything sounding? I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. Can you guys hear me okay?
Just let us know if you're hearing her because we're ready to roll.
Yeah.
No, Bernadette is good. All right. Okay.
Awesome.
So God has answered our prayers. Bernadette is good. I am better now. So without any further ado, I'm so happy that you all are joining this evening. You know it means a lot, right? And I have such faithful soldiers that join. These are queens in this incredible community that are so good about joining, and Real Talk isn't possible without them. And I don't for a moment take it for granted. We just said earlier that, ladies, can you imagine it's the middle of June already?
I know.
We're halfway in the year, and I don't know when the time went by, but what I do know is that time is not waiting on any of us. That's a fact. And so I want to welcome you. Let me officially open the show. Welcome to Real Talk. Real Talk with Marsha-Ann is a space where I believe that this is a community where we encourage one another, engage one another, empower one another, and most importantly, educate one another. My desire is for God to use me to help us to ensure that collectively, individually and collectively, we truly live out our life's purpose. And we do so with passion, with sweet peace, and with prosperity. And so bringing us today's talk, Fatherless Daughters from Pain to Purpose, the fact that Bernadette has been able to identify a big part of her purpose makes her such a suitable guest for this evening's show. And I'm going to read off an excerpt from her bio because nothing does it better than hearing from the guests themselves. So Bernadette will be able to share a little bit more candidly, but Bernadette Jackson is in New York, New York, and she is a woman of faith, a mom, a fatherless daughter, and a transparent truth teller. As a relationship engagement strategist and your favorite fear investigator, she'll have to tell us what that's about. She creates a safe space for fatherless daughters to learn, to grow, and heal. Her safe spaces include the Bernadette Jackson podcast, where she is redefining how the world views women with daddy issues. Her, which is her acronym HER Coalition, her private Facebook community, and her acronym HER Way Relationship Intensive is her private coaching program. In that program, Bernadette teaches clients everything that she wished she knew about attracting and maintaining amazing relationships as a fatherless daughter. This program is near and dear to Bernadette's heart as she openly shares how her own fear of abandonment cycle kept her in undesirable relationships for more than a decade. And of course, at the end, she will tell us how to find her website, how to follow her on IG, as well as any particular programs or encouragement and her private Facebook community. So, without any further ado, it's really wonderful this evening, Bernadette. I know that this is a topic that, when you look at the statistics, there are so many women across the entire world who are impacted because of, I'll start with the relationship or lack thereof or non-existent relationship with their fathers.
Yeah.
For those who have had very healthy, nourishing, rich relationships, the percentage doesn't weigh as heavily in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
So many psychological assessments have been done about the impact of a positive father figure, and the reverse is true. A negative impact of a father figure have had, especially on women and their choice of relationships, how they view themselves. And so it really became very relevant to engage in this conversation because you are walking the walk, talking the talk. You have been able to do it based on your own experience. And you also know the difference with embracing the who you are today. And you are illuminating that. Visually, you can see your face is beaming to talk. So without any further ado, Real Talk family, do make her feel welcome. Drop it in the chat. Welcome, Bernadette. Welcome, B. We'll make it easy for you. Welcome, B. And Bernadette, over to you.
Thank you so much for having me on, Marsha-Ann. Honestly, I've been getting a lot more comfortable with just being in spaces like this and sharing my story. So I really appreciate you just asking me to come on this platform to talk a little bit about fatherlessness. One thing you said, definitely, I wanted to illuminate a little bit. You talked about how many fatherless daughters there are in the world, but there's about 84 million fatherless daughters or women who identify as fatherless daughters in just the US alone. That's 84 million. And so 84 million, yeah. And it's like when we think about that and we're not even extending it to the world, just the United States, it goes to show you how many women are walking around who are possibly unhealed, who still have pain, who don't yet understand how that pain is translated to the relationships that they're having, and who yearn for more, who yearn for deeper, and don't know how to get there. And I was exactly in that space a good 7 or 8 years ago. And it was coming off of a birthday. And I had thought that I was going to spend this particular birthday with the man that I was going to marry. And
Mm.
that is not what happened for me. That is not what happened. I ended up breaking up with him just 3 days before. And in doing that, I realized that he was just as emotionally unavailable as my father is. And I had not realized the connection until I cried out to God, because I was just so hurt, so upset, and so, I guess, confused, because I just didn't understand, like, what was it about me that kept on attracting these relationships? Why couldn't the relationships I was in work? Why were they always failing? Like, all of these questions I had about myself. And I was just always looking at it as it was my fault. I'm the failure. I'm the one who, doesn't know what's going on. And I would just beat myself up about this. It was almost embarrassing. I didn't want to tell people, like, yeah, this guy that I thought was going to be it is yet another relationship that didn't work. It was really hard for me. So when I cried out to God, I said, Lord, I don't know what this is. I don't know why I keep having to deal with this, but I need you to tell me what's going on. I really just want to know what this is. And he spoke to me in that moment, and he told me that I was the common denominator in all of my failed relationships. And if I did not make the effort to change, I was not going to see a change in any of my relationships. And I'm telling you right now, like, Marsha-Ann, I really thought that I had been punched in the stomach when I heard that. When I got that revelation, I was like, no, Lord, I know you're joking. You can't be serious.
For real.
You can't be serious. Like, you can't be talking about me. Like, I'm always a good girlfriend. I'm always doing all the things. I'm always making sure that, my boyfriend has everything that they need. Like, what are you talking about? It's me. Like, it's me, Lord. What?
Mhm.
And it just kept dropping into my spirit. Like, you're the common denominator. And until you change, you're not going to see a change. And I had to really sit with that because it was so heavy. I really had to sit with that. And when I did, I started to see the connection between what I didn't get with my father and what I was accepting as familiar in my relationships. And I'll explain that a little bit, because I realized that what was familiar to me was emotional unavailability, like non-commitment from my father, not knowing his character, and therefore just accepting whatever was given to me. And then just the fear of abandonment and the fear of
Ooh.
rejection, and wanting, to be in relationship and connectedness with people. And so whoever was interested in me, not taking a deep dive into who they are, but just accepting what they were giving me. And those were all of the things that were familiar to me about my relationship with my father. He was not there. He had the opportunity to have a relationship with me, and he chose not to. He didn't live very far away. So it's not even as if, like, distance or location was a barrier. None of these things were it. So it was just me thinking that something was wrong with me, that he chose not to be in a relationship with me. And so now I'm like, I really don't have very much worth if my own father didn't want to be in relationship with me. So I'm just going to
Mhm.
have to take what I can get, you know? And that feeling of unworthiness really kept me in places that were very familiar, but so toxic, and certainly not what I deserved,
Mhm.
and absolutely not what I yearned for. So my journey to healing really was very introspective. It was super hard. It was really painful, but it was necessary. And what I found out is that
Mhm.
so many more people were affected with fatherlessness than I even thought. And even though it's something that is looked upon so negatively, there are so many women who are dealing with the same things. And I couldn't find anything at all to help me on my journey. That's the thing that really surprised me. There are 84 million women who
Right.
self identify as fatherless daughters, and there was one book. when I wanted to heal. One book.
Wow.
There were no programs. There were no resources, nothing specifically for us. And so my healing journey, a part of it has really just been creating the things that I needed to support my own self on the journey. And the Lord just like, illuminating my path and letting me know exactly where I needed to go. What did I need to do? What did I need to look into? And that's really how I came to do the work that I'm doing now, and why I honestly believe that it's purpose work, because I'm creating for women now safe spaces for them to learn, grow, and heal, because I wish I had that when I was younger. And the programs that I have now, I wish that I could have found that when I was ready to heal. There were none available. So these conversations, every single time I'm able to talk about it, I'm just, grateful that I'm able to share, because the more people understand that they're not alone and that there are now resources out there for them, that's really just what I'm here to do, honestly.
You broke up a little bit, and this is a part. For some reason, the transmission just was not very clear. But I believe it's important that we rivet this point again, because you likened feeling unworthy because of his unavailability, and then I think I heard about proximity. Can you just say that part again, because
Yes.
that's so important. The foundation for anybody who is hearing it needs to hear the foundation of why you felt the way you did and how it manifested.
Yeah, definitely. So my father does not live very far. He lives maybe about 3 hours driving, about a 45-minute flight away. And he never made the trip to see me when I was growing up. I may have had about, I don't know, maybe 2 conversations a year with him at best. And they were always on the surface. They would always promise something that he would never actually hold up his end of the bargain for. And so with me, I internalized his absence to mean that something was wrong with me, that it had to have been me, like he was my father. This is my blood. Why wouldn't he want to actually have a connection with me? And so I used to always wonder, like, what is it about me? And I internalized those questions to mean that something was wrong with my character, something was wrong with me. And it really did diminish my self-worth, and it just shattered my self-esteem, to where I felt that I needed to prove myself in relationships. I needed to prove my worth, and I needed to just accept what was given to me. And usually that was emotionally unavailable men, because that's all I knew, and that's what I recognized.
Wow. That hurt is real
Yeah.
and deep.
Yeah.
So the process of your healing, how did you manage to even begin that? Help us to understand that a little bit better.
Yeah, that I really love that question. And it honestly just speaks to the researcher in me. I
Mhm.
absolutely love like looking for information and looking for the connections and stuff like that. This is something that I've been doing since I was a child. And so when I got the revelation that it was me that needed to change, I started to look at all of the different areas in my life where I felt a deficit, where there was a void, and wanted to like explore those areas a little more. And the one place that I knew I always had some hurt and some tenderness around was the lack of relationship with my father. And so I started to explore what it was like to be fatherless, and what did that actually mean for me in terms of how I would look at myself, some of the things that I would think about myself, what did I think I deserved, and how did I show up in relationships. And when I started to do that research, I took a deep dive into that and just into who I was in that whole space for a good 3 years. And I called that time like, just being in my lab. Like I was like,
Wow.
tinkering around. I was getting information. I was applying new techniques. I was definitely praying. I was definitely journaling. Definitely doing things to bolster myself, but also learning how to nurture my own self, learning how to validate my own self. What did that look like for me? Just exploring the thoughts that I was having, and sometimes just having to arrest some of these negative thoughts that I was having and really replace them with life, like just speaking life. And so all of these things is what really took me, I want to say maybe about 3 years, like I was saying, to just like get it to a point where it was a lifestyle and not just what I was doing sometimes. And I like to call it the hard that I chose. Like, you can choose the hard of staying the same, or you can choose the hard of changing. And so I chose to change. And it was a bumpy road. It was definitely not one that was smooth. Like sometimes I really did have to crawl down that road. Sometimes I really did, I had to stop on the side and take a break, but I kept moving. So, yeah.
Help us and help others to understand. If you were to peel back, would you say that you began to feel, you said it so well that you had to identify the areas that you were hurting that needed to be healed?
Mm.
Someone else is on here listening now who would probably be able to say, I remember from I was a teenager, that's when I began to feel it the worst. Or, at what stage did you identify that his absence from interacting with you became an issue, one? And two, how did it manifest itself in your interactions?
Okay. So I have always known that my father not being there affected me. I did not know the depth that it did, but I knew how I felt about it, how I felt after every conversation, after every promise, and then, like, looking for the thing to happen and it not coming to pass. Like, all of those things affected me. And what I realized that I was doing when I was younger was just, building coping mechanisms around that pain. So it would look like me just forgetting, or just choosing not to dwell on that thing, or just trying to say to myself that I didn't have any feelings at all about what happened. And what that kind of defense mechanism actually created was the type of relationship where I did not honor my own feelings. I did not honor my needs and desires in relationships. And I didn't think that I was worthy of telling people how I needed to be supported. So I would keep a lot of things to myself. I would try to handle everything on my own. And I would silently have feelings about things, but not give myself enough time to process it. I would feel that, this didn't feel nice and I didn't like this, but I would never process the feelings. I would just put them in a box and I would move on and try to pretend as if they never happened. So that's definitely one thing that I would say that I did as a result of it. The way that I showed up in relationships in regards to like not feeling worthy was that I overextended myself in relationships. I did not have any boundaries at all. Whatever you needed, whatever you asked for, even if I was uncomfortable, I was going to give it to you because I wanted to make sure that you stayed. It didn't matter the condition of the relationship. It didn't matter how I felt in the relationship. It didn't matter if I wasn't seen, if I didn't feel understood or supported, just that you were there. And I wanted to do everything that I could to make sure that you stayed. So that's one of the ways that I showed up. Another way was definitely promiscuity. When I was younger, I really felt that if I was asked anything in terms of physicality, I couldn't say no. And again, this just goes back to like, not affirming my own boundaries, like not actually honoring how I felt, all I cared about was how this person felt and what did they need, and trying to create an atmosphere where I gave them everything that they needed in hopes that they would never leave me. So it didn't matter,
Right.
like, what I felt. You know what I mean? It was just like, I just want to
Yeah.
create this atmosphere where they're not going anywhere because I'm giving them all of the things that they could possibly ask for. So those are a few of the ways that I definitely showed up in relationships as a result of my father laws. And there are tons more.
I'm so happy for your openness, Bernadette. So that comes then, I imagine, from the abandonment side. So you would want to people please, and I think we should highlight that. I imagine that that's not limited to your male female connections either. In other words, just anybody, in
Yeah,
an effort to ensure that they would stay, you would then sacrifice your own feelings and boundaries. And I don't think we take abandonment seriously.
I don't think
I
so
think
either.
we think that abandonment is so literal, but we don't understand what that detachment is like in
Hmm.
these very important relationships, especially from zero straight on up, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I completely get you there. And this is why, honestly, like I teach my clients about the fear of abandonment cycle, because the
Mhm.
fear of abandonment cycle will keep you in relationships that you have no business in way past their expiration date. It will make you think that, you know what, like when you see red flags, this is a challenge for me to try and fix them instead of an indication that I need to leave, you know? It also will take a different route where, like, you will be in a relationship with a person who is exactly what you've been yearning for, and you will think that you don't deserve that, that you're not worthy of that. So then you self sabotage it and you do
Hmm.
all of the things for this relationship to end because you don't think that this person is actually looking at you and seeing worth and value. You feel like any day now the shoe is going to drop, they're going to see me for the trash that you think that you are, and they're going to throw me away. So before that even happens, let me sabotage this relationship. Let me get out of it because at least I can control my own exit. So those are the things that abandonment and the fear of abandonment cycle can prove in relationships. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're on that cycle, relationship after relationship. And, like they're trying to get off and they don't know what to do. And that's actually what's happening to them.
Wow. I believe there, back to your statistic then. So can you imagine 84 million women in the US alone
Yeah.
identify with being fatherless, right?
Yep.
In one way or another. So the saying that hurt people
Hmm.
becomes very real here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It does. And, we look at it as it being a situation where you're hurting somebody else. But a lot of times with that particular statement, you're hurting yourself, you know?
Mhm.
So the person that you're
Mhm.
hurting is yourself. And it's because you don't even know how the pain has affected you. And you don't even realize how much you're yearning for something more. You have just accepted that what's familiar is all that you're going to get, and you're just going to sit in this because at least you know how this is going to end. At least you know what this looks like. And so it's so important for me and for other people in this space to actually continue to illuminate these stories so that people can start to recognize themselves in these stories, and they can start to clue in to how it is that they're feeling and start asking themselves so important questions so that at least they can be aware of what's going on and the fact that there are resources out there for them.
Wow. Bernadette, no, I'm hearing you speak, and it's just so very important to have these conversations. One of the things then I would want to ask very boldly is, did you then need to reach out and express yourself to your for those who need to express themselves to their father, if their father still exists? Was that a part of your healing journey, or was a part of your healing journey just understanding this is how the person is, and that's not my responsibility? At what point were you able to strengthen yourself enough?
So, the first thing I was in journey, I did write a letter to my father, but the letter was to myself. And what I did and what I found so cathartic was that I read the letter out loud in the mirror to myself as if I was talking to my father. And just in doing that alone, it was able to help me to release a lot of the frustration, the feelings, just the pent up emotions that I had been keeping inside all that time. And it wasn't until I actually did that exercise that I realized how much I was actually holding on to. And then just speaking it verbally like that really was a release for me. But if I fast forward a little bit, my father and I did meet for the first time when I was in college, a freshman in college. And so at that point, I was maybe about 45 minutes drive from him. So I guess it was more convenient for him to come and see me at that point. So we did meet face to face, and we have had a tumultuous relationship. You know, sometimes we've been good, sometimes we haven't. But what I have come to accept is that my father is a man before he is my father, and he has his own issues. He has had his own upbringing. He has likely had his own traumas, and they have informed the way he has parented me. And what I have been able to do is to just forgive him and to just understand that he was not able to give me what I needed. I no longer expect our relationship to be what I wanted it to be when I was growing up. I just take what I can get and I leave the rest. I don't take on anything more about what we discuss, how often we discuss it, or what our relationship could possibly be. I just accept what we have and I move on, you know? And so, what I would say to women who may be in a space where they're trying to figure out should they speak to their father or should they just go on with their healing, I think that it's really a personal choice. But I would definitely say to at least write a letter to your father, whether you give it to him or not, and get all of your feelings from in your head onto paper. Because just looking at the letter, reading it out loud to yourself or reading it in your head is going to give you a different perspective than the thoughts that are actually in your head. And when you get it out in that way, you can decide if you're going to actually give the letter to your father in hopes that it will at least illuminate him to how you've been feeling and hopefully, you know, be the beginning to some kind of reconciliation between you, or you can keep it because you realize that maybe what you have imagined is not going to be what's going to happen. And I think at the very least, you need to know that even if you are going to share how you feel with your father, there's a chance that it may not do anything at all. And if it doesn't do anything, are you going to be okay with that? You know, so if you ask yourself these questions and you know that it's only going to trigger you further, if it doesn't do anything, maybe I wouldn't reach out just yet,
Right.
you know?
Wow.
But it's definitely a personal choice.
Triggers. You walked right into that one. What would you say that you've identified with some of your, the forgiveness is a good start to move on when struggling,
Yeah.
but not without those mechanisms like you're saying, you know? So I imagine that that is really a very important exercise to release from your head and your heart and write it on paper and say it in front of the mirror, right? Um, what would you say you've been able to identify with yourself or with other clients that you work with? And everybody's case is going to be different, but you talk about triggers.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the triggers that you find that tend to be more popular with those who are battling with the abandonment issues, with the issues that are associated with the emotional unavailability. That's such a powerful statement,
Yeah,
and a powerful reality that many face.
it is.
And so I think what you described earlier is like you went through a numbing. Like, in other words, you numbed yourself from the reality of what you were experiencing in relationships because that was your coping mechanism. But talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the triggers that I notice are really, really common in fatherless daughters is the idea that vulnerability equals weakness. And in being vulnerable and in letting somebody in to some of the more tender spaces that you have in your heart, that this person is going to judge you, and B, not going to be able to support you. And so, because of those two really, really important things that you have not gotten from your father, you don't want to give anybody else the opportunity to do anything remotely close to that. So that's one thing. The not understanding how to have intimacy outside of sex, is something else that is a trigger. Uh, Fatherless daughters a lot of times really do believe that their body is the only way that they can prove that they're worthy, but also that they can have some kind of intimacy with a person. So they don't understand how to be their most authentic self in relationships with people. They may be able to do it with their girlfriends or with friends because there's the level of trust there, but there is not that level of trust in romantic relationships. So it's very, very hard. Another trigger that I've seen is that if there are arguments that are had in a relationship, then you start to fear that the relationship is over. So there is no reconciliation, like there is no trying to resolve the issue. It's that this argument means that this person is going to abandon me. So I'm going to leave this relationship without trying to solve the problem because I fear that they are going to leave me because we had such a difficult conversation. So there's a lot of that as well. And then just, the idea that they their needs and desires are not important at all. So even though they may absolutely need some help with something, a lot of times they may not verbalize that. They won't say that they need help with something because they feel vulnerable and they feel like doing that really puts them out on the limb. And if a person does not help them, or if they're unable to help them, then they look at it as a personal rejection. And so, it really just is. It's the idea of wanting to belong. It's the idea of wanting to be really connected deeply with somebody, but being afraid to open yourself up and show somebody, here, these are my scars. This is where I hurt. This is where I need support. This is who I am. And I want you to know that. So it's like the wall is there, but they want you to get behind the wall. And it's like you had to take the chisel and knock out all of these bricks and everything, and then like kind of peek inside. But, it's only a peek because, any little thing can erupt that can erect that wall again. So, it's really hard, and it absolutely has to start with them. They absolutely have to be the ones who want to have a deeper connection, who want to actually heal before anyone who's even looking to love them in the way that they would love to be loved is going to be able to get through. So that's the one misconception that I would say.
Listen, it sounds like such a vicious cycle.
It is.
But the beauty about it is the strategies to overcome it. I believe one of the very strong statements that you made is that once you release having an expectation of the person to fill your cup, if you let that go, that's a very big first step.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you keep holding on I don't know what just happened, but the I think that just went out a while ago. Can you hear me?
I can. I can.
You can hear me now?
I can
Okay.
hear you.
The
Yes.
connectivity just seemed to have gone for a blink. So what I'm saying is that you end up in this place of disappointment if it is that we're having expectations
Hmm.
that they can't possibly deliver on versus knowing that they can't meet you where you are. So
Right.
and do you find clients that have had to say they've just cut off totally because it's not healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes that's would even be something that I would actually suggest. Because it really does depend on the
Mhm.
client. It depends on the father. It depends on the relationship that they've had and what she has endured. And sometimes, like even though that is not what you want, sometimes it is better and it is healthier for you to just
Right.
not be in communication with the person who constantly triggers you, where you know that the relationship is toxic, you know that person is not going to change, and their character just is not suited for the type of life that you want to live. So sometimes the best choice really is to just remove yourself from that person's life.
And so, a part of the healing journey that you have begun and how you have helped so many others along the way as well. Tell us about HER.
Yeah, so HER is an acronym for Healing Elevates Relationships. And I have the HER suite for fatherless daughters because I want them to know that there are now spaces and there are resources available specifically for fatherless daughters. So there were some
Mhm.
truths that I came to just in my healing journey. And these are also truths that I use, or that I really let my clients know, rather, so that they can start to feel that the worthiness that they already have has already been there all along, and they just need to now tap into it. So the truth that I know for sure is that my father loss happened to me, but wasn't because of me. And that in and of itself really did help
Mm.
me to gain so much clarity about the worth that I had, what I deserved, and then standing in that truth so that I can then start attracting the amazing relationships that I had always yearned for. One other thing is that, like, my father loss is not an
You're gonna have to
indication.
say that. You're gonna have to say that again. You have
Okay.
to say that again.
So, one of the truths that I have come to know is that my father loss happened to me, but it did not happen because of me. And so, just understanding that truth alone has helped me to get so much more confident, and it has helped me to tap into the worth that was already there. It has really helped me to stand in the truth that I deserve amazing relationships, and then validate my own self so that I can then start to attract and maintain it. So, another thing that I want my clients to know, and that I want fatherless daughters to know in general, is that nothing they've done and no experience that they've had disqualifies them from the relationships that they really want. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter who doesn't see your value. It doesn't matter that you've made some mistakes. None of that is a disqualifier. You still deserve amazing relationships. And once you start to learn what your value is, and especially as it relates to how the Lord sees you, once you get your identity from your heavenly Father and you start to really see yourself the way He does, and you stand in that truth, then you start to show up differently in relationships. And I always want people to know that the quality of their relationships is an outward expression of the relationship that they have with themselves. So I'm going to repeat that one again, even though you didn't ask me. The quality of the relationships that you have with others is a direct expression of the relationship that you have with yourself. So many times, what you will notice is that the qualities that you're seeing in your partner, you may have some of these
Hold
qualities as
tight,
well.
everybody. Don't know what's happening.
You look clear. Can you see me?
I don't know what happened. We totally lost you a while ago.
Really? Because
Yeah,
I could see you perfectly. Can you
yeah.
see, can you see
Who's
me
not
now?
here? I can absolutely see you now. I want to just check in with our audience. Um, yes, I like that, Claudette. My father loss happened to me, but it wasn't because of me. All right. She's saying they can see and hear both of us.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And
Awesome.
thank you so much for engaging in the chat. Yeah, please remember, drop your comments in the chat because it's so important to become engaged in this. All right, good, all good, they say. So you're gonna have to pick that up again.
So yeah, that's fine. That's fine, no problem. So what I was saying earlier is that the quality of your relationships is a direct expression of the relationship that you have with yourself. And so, what I have found to be true is that clients will tell me about the type of people that they have attracted and the types of relationships that they've had. And when they take a closer look at themselves and their own characteristics, a lot of times they realize that they mimic the same characteristics of the people that they're in relationship with. So, what that tells me is that you are the biggest and greatest project that you will ever work on. And so amazing relationships that you deserve have to first start with you building an amazing relationship with yourself. And so my program, Her Way Relationship Intensive, is what actually helps women to get from feeling like they are unworthy and that their needs and desires do not need to be met or prioritized, to understanding that they have value, that they have worth, that their identity is in who their heavenly father says they are. And he has said some marvelous things about who we are as women, who we are as his daughters. He has even said that we are the favor that our future husband receives upon meeting us. So what does that tell you? That means that your future husband is going to be blessed exponentially more because he meets you. How much value do you have if that is what the Lord is saying about the man who finds you? So when we start to really identify who we are and we're standing in that truth, then we start to show up differently for ourselves and we start to show up differently in relationships with others. So what I hope that Her Way Relationship Intensive really does for my clients is really to help them to understand the relationship between their father story and the types of relationships that they've been having. We usually go into a very deep dive to connect the dots between what that story has told them about themselves, what they have believed about themselves because of that deficit, and then how have they been showing up because of these limiting beliefs that they've had. And then what we do is we then start to identify what their fear-based responses are. And their fear-based responses is typically the coping mechanisms that they have built. It is all of the negativity that they allow into their space and all of these things that are usually triggered by the story that they've been telling themselves. And then we work on some transparent truths. And our transparent truths really allow us to be authentic in our relationships so that we begin to get to how you actually want relationships to go. It is always a situation where you want your relationships to be ones that feel safe, where you feel seen, where you feel heard, loved, and supported. And so whenever you show up authentically and you tell people exactly what it is that you need in the moment, you will find that either the person has the capacity to do that or they don't. And either understanding that they have the capacity or they don't, it's a gift. Because if you know that they have the capacity, then you know that this is a person that you can continue to build with. But if they don't, then you can just release them gently, because this is not your person. And it is fine to understand that, because now you know that just because that person isn't for you, it doesn't mean that you have any less value. So we work on all of these things in that program. And at the end of it, women really do start to attract and maintain the amazing relationships that they deserve.
Wow. Huh. You gave that in so like a cannonball came right out. Poof. It really did. You launched your rocket and you just set it off with a G-force, right? But I believe we all have, I'm sure there are questions that folks will have, and I'm inviting them to really just drop it in the chat. But fear-based, let's go back to that. You just said a very important thing about fear-based responses.
Mm-hmm.
Because could it be that folks, women, are going through their day-to-day life, not being able to necessarily pinpoint that they have father-daughter issues. They just feel like they have some issues,
Right.
but they haven't been able to necessarily put a finger on it. But you are perhaps that conduit to help them to understand, if you find that you are doing these few things, if you find that you're having difficulty in this area, could it be? I mean, really, it is not a guarantee, but it could it be that this is something that you're facing? What are some of the questions that you would ask, that you would pose, that someone could ask themselves to really identify, could they be having father-daughter issues and don't even, and haven't come to grips with it?
Right. So I first want to define what fatherlessness actually means. Like, a fatherless daughter is a woman whose father is either absent, deceased, or physically there and emotionally unavailable. There is a spectrum of fatherlessness. And so a woman whose father is absent is on one side of the spectrum, and a woman whose father is there, but she has just had like some issues with her father, is at the other end. And so usually women will live someplace in the middle, where, they may have had some relationship with their father, they may have had some conversations, whatever it is. But one of the things that I would say to a woman to help her to just get to a place where she can start being introspective about this is asking her to think about her relationship with her father. When she thinks about her relationship with her father, does she feel that he saw her, that he understood her, and that he was intentional about his relationship with her? And if she can answer any of these questions by saying no, then typically she has some issues with her father that bear exploring. So that is what I would say is the number one question that I would ask. We all know that our earthly relationships are not going to be perfect, but if you know that there is a consistency with your father, like coming home, sitting down in front of the TV, barely saying anything to you, not being curious about who you are, what you're into, not ever taking you anywhere, and all of these types of things, but you could say your father was in the home, you're considered a fatherless daughter, because that is a man who was physically there but emotionally unavailable. And there are a lot of women who I come in contact with whose fathers were in the home, and they don't ever explore what that relationship was like because their father was physically there. But it doesn't take that alone. And we know that because we can be in romantic relationships with a person who's physically there and feel like we are completely not seen by them, and be completely unfulfilled, be unsatisfied, be miserable, and want to leave. And if you can know that, and if you can identify that in romantic relationships, imagine what something like that was like for you growing up, but not understanding how to process that, and you thinking on some level that it has to be something that's wrong with you. And then you actually attracting those relationships because that's all you saw, that was all that was familiar to you. And so that would be the question that I would ask them to really think about in terms of if they would fall on the spectrum of fatherlessness.
Wow. You have really laid a serious, strong foundation. A heavy topic,
Yeah.
heavy topic, but a very, very vital topic, because we already know that it is oftentimes spoken that how women see themselves is typically how they believe their father sees them.
Yes.
And so you have brought up such very solid points to help others along the way. If someone were to start journalizing now to help themselves, you said earlier about writing that letter.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there are those who maybe some have put such a wall around themselves. There are folks who are going to be watching this replay. They've put out such a wall around themselves, and also perhaps consider it a label, so they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we help? How do we help to even say, start a sentence by writing this in your journal? Like, what would you help them to do to get them to embrace? We cannot fix what we don't face, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
I'm
tell
sorry. Go
us.
on. So, I honestly really like that question because it is really bringing up a broader topic of self abandonment. And so, when we actually abandon ourselves, we don't even think about how we feel moment to moment, much less in a grander scheme in terms of like how we feel in relationship to our father. So, what I would challenge them to start doing is just to start to tap into, how do I feel throughout the day? Because if anyone has really built up a wall where they do not examine their own feelings, they're not in the habit of processing them, and they don't even know where to start. They need to really just start with cluing themselves into, how do I feel in this moment? And when you think about how you feel, I want you to then go a step further and ask yourself, what do I need in this moment to feel supported? And whatever that thing is, I challenge you to honor what you need in that moment and actually give yourself that thing, because that in and of itself is going to move you away from self abandonment and into self nurturing. And it's only when we get into a place where we start to nurture our own selves and we start to really prioritize how we feel, what we need, and what our desires are, and then honor those things, that's when we can start to really get into the deeper issues of, how did I feel about something that I have been like, keeping locked away and ignoring all this time, because it's not going to come right away. So you have to start with just like how you're feeling now and work up to that. Because what our minds usually do is, it's like a computer, and it usually does the thing that you do most often. So whatever your response is to a particular type of situation, whether it's your response to pain or hurtful emotions or big emotions in general, is to ignore them, is to put them in a box, I'm going to deal with it later, your brain is going to start to automatically do that. And you don't even have to think about this anymore. It's automatically going to pluck those big emotions, put them in a box, because I already know she's going to do this. I'm not even going to waste my brain power on giving her the option. I'm just going to do it for her. That is how our brains work. It's a huge computer, and it's looking for the quickest and most popular response that you typically have to the same type of things. So in order for you to trick your brain or reprogram your brain, you're going to have to be intentional about cluing in to how you feel right here in the moment. So you're having a stressful day at work and you're feeling stressed. You can feel it. You feel the anxiety. You feel all these things. What do I need right now in order to feel a little less anxious? And if it is that I need to step away from this desk, I need to go take a walk, I need to go outside, I need to get some fresh air, do that thing. Don't just think about, oh, you know what? I really could use some fresh air right now, and then just get back to the work. Stand up, go outside, get your mask, get your keys, and take the 10-minute walk. Because by the time you come back from that, your brain is going to start to see, like, oh, okay, she needed something in that moment and she honored herself. And then it's going to help you to do this more and more. And as you start to honor yourself in these little moments, you will start to realize that you're going to then be given permission to actually feel the bigger feelings, and things will start to unlock for you so that you can start to explore some of these things that you have been keeping in a box all this time. So that would be my advice.
That's solid advice. Absolutely solid. And I believe that that also comes back to, it's a classic example that if we don't honor ourselves, it's the equivalent of also teaching people how to treat us.
Yes.
So if we settle for less, if we know within ourselves we are settling for less, then people will end up automatically over time also give you less.
Absolutely.
So honoring ourselves is a part of that self-loving journey, not self-loathing, which many go through. Man, this has been quite the epiphany. Yes, Cheryl, honor yourself, which is so key. What feedback or questions do any of you have for Bernadette? Whether even if it's not for yourself or anybody else that you may know, because what is important is whenever we hear something, the mission of this platform is to be able to share beyond our own knowledge, because there are others who need to hear this and hear it in a fashion like this and know that there's no judgment. I imagine a big part of the burden, as you even describe, is that there are so many that go through life feeling the sense of judgment.
Yes.
So feeling whole becomes so important, but feeling whole is going to have to come from working from within.
Absolutely.
Nobody can do that for us. Yeah, just God and that quiet time to be able to, like how you heard from God that said, well, you have to fix yourself.
Right.
Big difference. Big difference.
Definitely.
We're going to be wrapping up shortly. And so I want you to tell everyone about your podcast. What's your podcast all about? Who do you typically have as guests on your podcast? And also tell us about your respective website, and tell us how to find you beyond this Real Talk show.
Okay. So my podcast is called the Bernadette Jackson Podcast, and it is where I am redefining worldviews with daddy issues, one episode at a time. We discuss topics, we share stories, and I do it all from the perspective of a fatherless daughter. And I usually have guests on there that are either fatherless, where they have had some healing and they have now come out on the other side of it and have a story to share. And in season 3, that's coming up in July, I'm also going to start to share the stories of fathers with daughters. So that's a completely different perspective. I'm really excited about that now. It's all new questions, all new interviews, and I'm looking forward to that. Usually my podcast is where I really share information that fatherless daughters need to know. I talk about topics specifically from our perspective, and then I also give some insight into how they can look at themselves to see if something that they are dealing with, and then giving them a path forward. So I use that platform to share my knowledge and just to talk things that I wish that I knew when I was growing. And I also do that in my private Facebook community, Her Coalition. So I usually do teaching every week, and we talk about a topic. We do a deep dive into topics that are related to them. We discuss things about relationships, about themselves. It's just a safe space for us to love on each other, for us to support each other, for us to ask the hard questions without fear of judgment or shame. And then, on my IG platform, Bernadette N. Jackson, that platform is where I give just like, the little bursts of information. So I'll definitely will tell you guys about topics that are related to fatherlessness. I will share stories. I will do case studies sometimes. It's just where I share so that you can go there and have a platform where there is information specifically for you, specifically geared towards you and with mind. So all of my platforms, again, is where I really just want to create safe spaces for fatherless daughters to learn, grow, and heal. And any platform that I'm able to do that, that's a platform that I'm typically on. So, yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And truthfully, I know that even if folks didn't catch this live, those who will catch it on the replay, you would have been helping some folks today and beyond today. And
Yeah.
Bernadette, I respect you for being so open. A big part of our strength, and I spoke about this on a live that I did just before this show. A big part of our life's journey is to accept where we need to become vulnerable.
Yes.
I believe we grew up in a culture that made being vulnerable seem like a weakness
Mm-hmm.
in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that our strength is truly in our vulnerability, where we are open, we're authentic, and we also understand that whatever our life's journey is, it's not just for us, but it's also to help someone else.
Right.
So, with that in mind, I can't help but say thank you so very much. In fact, Bernadette, I have a very unusual request. I have never done it before. I hope you have 15 or 20 more minutes because I want us to hop off of when we're through here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
inclined for us to do something as an IG live.
Okay.
It won't take long. I've never done it post show. But I feel the need to, there's a part of what you spoke about here that I feel the
Mm-hmm.
need to take on. Yeah, our strength is in our vulnerability. Thank you,
Yeah,
Claudia, for echoing that because it is true.
it is.
Too many of us, and I think it is something that we labor with, too many of us have gone through life's journey. And we have every aspect of that journey, which is a part of God's way of saying, okay, I never told you the road would be easy. And
Mm-hmm.
some of those things were definitely not God's assignment for us. But it
Right.
was an expectation, Claudette and everyone else, that we can use that journey, build on it, because we're still here, right? The fact
Mm-hmm.
that we have gone through some of the fires that we have been through in life, some of
Yep.
the storms, and we're still standing. It cannot be for us to take it for ourselves only. It must be that we take it and use it as a strength. So, yes, Cheryl said this was very interesting. Thank you very much, Bernadette. And I am pretty sure there are others who would be able to relate to this. So, I would ask that help me to get the word out about this YouTube channel, send this around so that others can benefit from it too. I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And also, when you are watching, do embrace and comment and share it with somebody else who could need it, because these are not issues that folks are necessarily open talking about.
Right.
In their quiet space and time, they would welcome the introspection. So, thank you so very much for joining my faithful people for another episode of Real Talk. Heal yourself and heal others along the way. Listen, Claudette, preaching with us today. Mitzi, I'm so glad you made it. Catch the full replay. And please, everybody, comment, share the video, share the YouTube link, forward this to others who you believe who would be enriched. To my all ever so faithful folks on here, thank you so much for making it. I'm really glad that you did. And from my heart to yours. Remember, Real Talk is our community. Real Talk is our channel. Real Talk is designed with you in mind. And that's to engage, encourage, empower, and educate one another. And my desire is to be that conduit so that we can all ensure that we live our lives of purpose, with passion, powered by just sweet, God's sweet peace and prosperity. So until our next episode, next week, Sunday, 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll see you back for YouTube Live. But I'm going to engage Bernadette after this on IG. So, Bernadette, you stay right here.
Okay.
Everyone else, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you for joining. Have a beautiful and a blessed week. And yay, thank you, Ish, for making it another wonderful session. Yes, come on over to IG. You'll at least catch up for the part that you missed. Cheryl, thanks as always for making it. Dee and everyone else, Talia. 2 minutes a call. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the broadcast with you all. And please spread the word. Be blessed.